afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon lecture. And we'll be starting the course proper. And as we indicated earlier on, if you have a question, please just indicate your question um, on the chat section, okay, on the live chat section. So please make sure you're following. If there's something you haven't understood, there's something you want me to clarify, be polite in your asking, and then just be blunt, take it over. No, please, this is what I didn't understand. Then can you clarify? Okay, and I saw a few of you just walking to school just now, and most of you were more or less like you were going to the farm. Okay, the way you are dressed, I had to stop a few of you and dress and have to dress properly. And secondly, some of you just showed in with your handset and nothing more. And I asked one of the students, said, because it's online, is your brain online too? Huh? So you get a paper, not even a paper, a notebook and a pen, and then you have the mindset, I'm going for class, I'm in the lecture, and then you get focused, okay? Okay, so we would start with the components of general and cell physiology. So we're looking at general and cell physiology, okay? And our outline for this course, is, so I'll give you an introduction, okay? So we'll have an introduction, and then followed by functional organization, composition, internal environment of the body, okay? So we will start with an introduction, and in that introduction, I will define what physiology is. We'll try to look at a brief history of physiology, and then we'll look at physiology as an integrated science, and then we'll look at the functional organization, composition, and the internal environment of the human body. Okay? And then from there we'll look at cell physiology. And after looking at cell physiology, we'll look at the transport across the cell membrane, or transport through the cell membrane. Okay? Then afterwards we'll end the course with membrane potential. Okay? We'll end the course with membrane potential. So we have like 5 components we'll look at in general physiology. First is the introduction. Second, we'll look at functional organization, composition, and internal environment of the human body. Okay? Then the third, we'll look at the cell physiology. The cell physiology. Then the fourth subtopic or topic is what? Transport across the cell membrane. Transport across the cell membrane. Then the fifth is what? The membrane potential. Okay. So these are the 5 sub themes or components we cover within general and cell physiology. Okay. So but then today we will look at the introduction. We try to introduce what physiology is. Okay. And so under this introduction, I'll define what physiology is. We'll look at a brief history of physiology, and we'll just briefly look at physiology as an integrated science, and then we can move on to functional organization. Okay? Any questions so far? And I hope you are getting me a little bit loud and clear. I'm trying to talk at the top of my voice, and you're getting me loud and clear. I hope so. Okay? Any questions so far? Any need for clarifications, and so that we can dive into the subject matter. As I indicated earlier on, if you have any questions, you just type them on the live chat section, and somebody says he or she can't see the board clearly. I don't know if the classroom can help us bring the board closer. here. What is it if the camera is the body? See the camera now? Should we extend the camera again? With the camera. You turn the camera that way. Try to see if you can turn it. Is that that? Or a bit closer? Yeah, I think it's better, right? Make sense? But that means I'll constantly be on that side, right? Okay. Okay, somebody says so there is too much interference in the audio. We can't hear clearly. Much better, so better. The body is clear. Okay. The body is not clear. Okay. Let's see how it goes. We'll keep on improvising. Okay. We'll keep on improvising and see how it goes. Okay. And so it's just for the purpose of teaching, even though using YouTube I needed to be professional, but then the purpose is for you to be taught, however it is, okay? So we're looking at, for in introduction, I said by the end of this course today, you should be able to define physiology. You should be able to define physiology. You should also be able to outline briefly the history of physiology, okay? And you should also be able to explain what it means by physiology as an integrated science, okay? And lastly, you should also be able to list the systems of the human body and their functions, okay? So the first thing, you should be able to define physiology. You should be able to outline briefly the history of physiology, some persons and what they contributed to physiology. And fourth, you should be able to explain or understand the concept of physiology as an integrative science. And then lastly, you should be able to list the systems of the human body and their functions. Okay. So okay. So far, what would you say is physiology? What do you understand by physiology? From what you've known up to this point, or what you've heard before, what do you know or understand by physiology? Okay. Now you have to understand that the studying of the human body, or how the functioning of the human body has been way back with human history, okay? And in trying to decipher, on trying to see how the body functions, ancient scientists understood this easily when somebody is sick, okay? Through diseases and illnesses to understand the deviations, okay? So we have early Indian, Egyptian, and Chinese writings that describe, that attempt to describe, or that describe the attempts by physicians to treat human diseases. Okay, so we have from writings we have attempts by physicians on how to do what to treat various diseases. And what some of those attempts we have things like use of camel dung, powdered corn. You could even have what we used leeches. Okay, leeches. Mhm. They may sound bizarre, they may sound strange, but they, as they were used then, some of them are even in use today. For example, leeches or blood sucking leeches. It has already actually been approved by the FDA, okay, for the treatment of certain diseases or what we call bloodletting. Huh? I was just even while then I was trying to look at something and we see medicinal leeches are blood sucking this, and there's what has been approved by the FDA, okay, for bloodletting, that is, and also for blood draining to cure diseases. Okay, so that is some of those are antiquities, some of those ancient things that were being done. Now, as our understanding of the human body has evolved, there has been more refining of therapeutic strategies or strategies to heal to treat diseases. Okay, even if I don't know how the community from where you come from, you remember that sometimes when you are probably maybe you have a wound or you have a kind of disease, your grandmother or grandfather would want to do one or some paste. So this is from ancient times, and this is based on their understanding. But with our improvement, with understanding of how the body functions, it has also given us an idea on how we can treat diseases. And so, understanding the improvement in therapy or in prophylaxis is based on the improvement on how we understand how the body functions. And so, understanding how the body functions is the bottom line of physiology. How the body functions is the bottom line of physiology. Okay? So, we are dealing with understanding how the body functions. Okay? So, what is physiology is the study of the normal functioning of a living organism. Okay? So, the first thing about physiology is what? The study of the normal functioning of a living organism and its component parts, including all the chemical and physical processes. Okay? So, you can say physiology is what? Physiology is a study of the normal functioning of all of a living organism and its component parts, including what? All its chemical and physical processes. And we've seen that as we proceed, okay? Both the physical and the chemical processes. So we study how the normal living organism functions. But now this is the next so we're looking at what the human being. Okay? So we are studying what? The normal functioning of the human being. Okay? Its component parts, the cells, the tissues, the organs, the systems, and what the physical and the chemical processes. Okay? Yeah. Now we there is still a question of who coined the term physiology, but then we'll just look at briefly the history of physiology. Briefly, the history of physiology. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? So can somebody through the live chat segment highlight for us the key components of the definition of physiology? Highlighting for us the key components of the definition of physiology. Okay, so I want to see on the live chat section the key components of the definition of physiology. Okay. Okay, so while that is coming up, please I want to see that, and if there's need for clarification, let that be made within that live section, that live chat segment. And so we want to look briefly at the history of physiology. Okay, and please pay some keen attention. The study of physiology traces, traces itself back to ancient times in India, China, and Egypt, as we mentioned before. Okay, we mentioned that. That is what traces its roots back to ancient India and Egypt. And before then, at the time of Aristotle, before then, Aristotle was, of course, a great philosopher, biologist, uh, uh, I don't know, I think he was also involved in physics and mathematics, but I'm sure he was a biologist, a philosopher. And of course, he coined the word physiology according to some literature. And he says, what is physiology? He said, what? Physiology is what? Is the study of the knowledge of nature. Okay? So according to him, it's what? According to Aristotle, he said what? Physiology was what? The study of the knowledge of what? Of nature. Is the study of what? The knowledge of what? Of nature. Okay, so he used physiology in a broad sense to describe the functioning of all living organisms. Okay, he used physiology to describe the functioning of what? Of what all living organisms in a broader sense. But it was not until Hippocrates, who is called the father of modern medicine, the father of medicine, okay, who attributed and linked physiology to medicine. Okay, so Hippocrates considered, who is considered the father of medicine, used physiology to mean what? The healing power of nature. Okay. And he closely and from there after physiology became closely associated to medicine. Okay. So we have mentioned Aristotle, okay, and we talked about Hippocrates, who is considered the father of medicine. And so he described physiology as what? The healing power of nature. Okay. And Hippocrates, of course, it has been attributed to him, right? It has been attributed to him. But Hippocrates coined the theory of the four humors. Okay? He coined the theory of the four humors. Coined the theory of the four what? Humors. Whether you put it in British or American spelling, four humors. Okay? And what is the concept of humors? Okay? These are chemical systems that regulate behavior. Okay? They consider the four humors as chemical systems what? That regulate behavior. Okay? Chemical systems that what? That regulate behavior. Okay. So Hippocrates coined what? The concept of what? Or the theory of what? Four humors. And so who has heard about the humors of Hippocrates? Humorism. So what are the four humors? Do I have people who read history here? Yeah. So according to the theory of four humors, it says that what the body contains four distinct body fluids. Okay, the body contains what? Four distinct body fluids. Four distinct body fluids. Black bile, black bile, phlegm, phlegm, yellow bile, and blood. Okay, so Hippocrates coined the theory of the four humors, stating what that the body contains four distinct body fluids: black bile, phlegm, yellow bile, and what? And blood. Okay, and blood. And he says any disturbances in their ratio, so there's a balance between the four. Okay, that any disturbance in their ratio will lead to what? Illness or disease. Okay, so according to this theory of the four humors, you say any disturbance in their ratio causes what? Ill health. Okay, but then what we are this black bile and phlegm, and so I remember I mentioned that the concept of humors are chemical systems that regulate behavior. Okay, these are what chemical systems that regulate what? That regulate behavior. So blood was believed to be produced exclusively in the liver. Remember, we're talking about the history, okay? Where knowledge was not being refined as much as that was the understanding at that time, okay? That the body is controlled by what? Four humors, which are body fluids, okay? And there is a balance between them. And if there is a disbalance in the ratio, what happens? Disease, ill health, okay? That was as crude as the understanding was. But then blood was believed to what? To be produced exclusively by the liver, okay, and was associated with a sanguine nature, okay. So blood was associated with what? Sanguine. Now, of course, now in French, the word for blood is sang, okay, sang. The word sang, okay. So, and I'm sure for those of you who believe that humans are categorized behaviorally as sanguine, phlegmatic, choleric, extrovert, and introvert. So it makes some kind of sense, right? Yeah. So remember, we are saying these humors are chemical systems that they are chemical systems that regulate what? Behavior. Okay. These are chemical systems that regulate behavior. Okay. So, so we said blood was believed to be exclusively produced somewhere from the liver, okay, and it's associated with the sanguine nature. Then yellow bile, let's look at yellow bile. Yellow bile was thought to produce aggression, okay, and yellow bile was thought to produce aggression, and reciprocally excess anger to cause liver derangement and imbalance in the humors. So yellow bile was thought to want to produce what? Aggression. Okay. And then they also mentioned that excess anger could also cause what? Liver derangement. And I'm sure you've also heard that people say when you stress a lot, when you're thinking, you're angry, you're bitter, disease sets in, isn't it? Okay. I don't know about this part, but then you've got some bile. I guess in my bile, I have black bitter bile. So you try to talk about some anger. Okay, that's the difference in communication. So we have blood, yellow bile, and then black bile. Okay, black bile. Um, so depression was attributed to excess or unnatural black bile. So the black bile, the more of black bile you had, according to the theory, you understand, you'll be depressed. So if you had more of a yellow bile, aggression, anger, bitterness, you understand? So there was more black bile, depression, you understand? And so they also said that what this black bile was also secreted by the spleen, and cancer was as a result of black bile that is concentrated in one specific area. You get the point? So cancer was seen as what? Black bile that is concentrated, excess black bile that is concentrated in what? In a specific area. Okay? And so, and then black bile, the behavior that was associated with black bile is melancholy. Okay? Melancholy. Remember we mentioned about sanguine? Okay? And then the last was phlegm. Okay? Phlegm. And have you heard of phlegmatic? individuals that are phlegmatic. Okay, so it was more or less like we said the phlegm, and it was associated with what? With reserved behavior. Okay, phlegm was associated what with reserved behavior. Okay. So this is a theory thing. Okay, this was a theory, and so a Swedish physician, Robin, no, that was actually a French physician that when it was around 19 something that went to question, and you could measure, say, of all these four body fluids, two are evident, but others are more or less imaginary. You understand? Like phlegm, you couldn't be able to lay a hold of it, okay? And we actually call it what? Pituitary fluid. You understand? So you couldn't lay hold of it. But that's ancient thought. But now, what is in modern times, a Swedish physician by name of Robin, a Swedish physician by name of Robin, in 1921, who is the one who derived or discovered or described what a test called ESR, erythrocyte sedimentation rate. Okay, we'll look at that when the erythrocyte sedimentation rate. Okay, was derived, described by a Swedish physician. Okay, and then he now says that these four body fluids are actually uh, contained within the blood itself and are evident when the blood is allowed to sediment after it collects after blood collection, allowing the blood to sediment in a tube. You can now be able to see the different body fluids. Okay, so first at the bottom you have the black bar. Okay, at the bottom you have the black bar, and then which is a dark clot. Then up on top of it, you have a layer of red cells, which was black. Then above it, you had what? A whitish layer, which was called phlegm. And then after it, you have a clay layer, which was what? The yellow fluid. Okay? So according to Robin, the other name is quite a Swedish name. I will do the sort in my dentition if I try to pronounce it. Mhm. So you have, please, we can only give we can only do as much as we can do. People say, I did improve on the sound. That's the much we can get, okay? Except I'm shouting at the top of my voice. So Robin, which is who he was a Swedish physician around 1921, was trying to modernize, not necessarily modernize, but trying to contextualize this theory of the body, the four humors within modern understanding. But then he says they are nothing much more than the sequestration or the separation of blood when it's allowed to sediment. Okay, and he says if you allow blood to sediment in a tube, you have at the bottom you have a collection of black stuff. We call it that the black bar. Above it, you have a layer of red cells. Mm? Of course, because our blood. And here you have what? You have a thin layer of a whitish layer, and he called that what? Phlegm. And then above is a clear layer of yellow fluid, okay? Called the yellow bar. So remember we are this history, okay? And of course our understanding has been improved over time. Okay. That yeah, that's derived what's called a leukocyte sedimentation rate. It's a test, it's a hematologic test that we will be able to do hopefully here. Actually, and it's an important test that is used for prognosis, okay, for follow-up of disease condition. Okay, you want to see someone is improving to the indication for how the disease is progressing. You sometimes use leukocyte sedimentation rate. Okay, and so it's a simple test that can be done. So you just collect blood in a tube we call the Western Green tube, if you are using the Western Green method, and you allow blood after anticoagulating it, using sodium citrate, okay, and then one part of blood and 4 parts of sodium citrate or the reverse, okay, and then you allow it to sediment or for after an hour, you can be able to do that. Okay. So you will see the separation. So you said after doing that, you see the separation. Okay. So we started by mentioning Aristotle, then we went to what? We went to Hippocrates. Okay. From Hippocrates, we tried to talk about the four humors, and then we tried to say what each humor stands for, and then we went later on just switch on. We skipped long line, but then we just mentioned about Robin, um, the Swedish physician, who was trying to conceptualize this four humors to gain uh, improved knowledge. And then now, after that, they came this one called Claudius Galenus. Claudius Galenus. Yes, this is one person you should not forget, even in medicine as a whole. Okay? He has knowledge in neurology, in biology, in psychology, in philosophy, in logic, in physiology, in anatomy. You understand? You can't speak to understand Claudius Galen. Okay? Okay. Or Claudius Galenus. So the name has been anglicized to just mean Galen. Okay? Galen. Okay? So Galen modified the Okay, Galen modified the Hippocrates theory. Remember, we mentioned that the theory of of humors or four body fluids is ascribed to Hippocrates. Okay, okay, and then Galen modified the Hippocrates theory and was the first to use experimentation to derive information about the systems of the body. He was the first to use what experimentation to derive information about the systems of the body. Okay, and so he is often referred to as the father of what? Of experimental physiology. Okay, so Galen is often referred to as what? The father of what? Of experimental physiology. Okay, we said Galen, he was the first person to use what? A set of experiments to derive information from systems of the body or about systems of the body. Okay, and so he's widely referred to as what? The founder or the father of what? Experimental physiology. Okay, and so the first assignment, which I want to give, and I'll tell how the assignment will be done, is what? The contributions of Galen to physiology. Okay, contributions of Galen to physiology. That's the first one. Remember, we mentioned his name is what? Claudius what? Galenus. Okay. Okay, that's important. Okay, so let's continue. But before we continue, somebody just let us give us the course outline. And I want you to read that rule there. I told you from the starting, be polite in your answer. And when we started the lecture, I gave the outline, isn't it? I showed the outline for the course. Okay, even before that, and I said earlier on that I will share the outline with the class. So please, if you are coming late, make sure you ask intelligible questions. Okay? It's just contributions of Galen. The contributions of Galen. Okay? If you ask me a question, be polite, give us the course outline. Okay, and so we continue. So we have mentioned about Aristotle. We talked about Hippocrates. We talked about just slightly about Robin. Then we just mentioned slightly too about what? Galen. Okay, we're just looking at what we explained. Then after Galen, we look at what called another scientist called Jean Ferrier. Okay, Jean Ferrier. Okay, and so Jean Ferrier, who existed between 1497 and 1558 AD. So when here is Jean, of course, think it's mostly a French person, right? So it's a French. So Jean Ferrier is a French physician who introduced the term physiology. Remember, it all depends on. So he introduced the term physiology from Ancient Greek meaning the study of nature. Okay, so according to this source or literature, they ascribe the term physiology to Jean Fennel. But other authors also ascribe the origin of the term physiology to what? To Aristotle. Okay, but then the intersection is that what they're talking about the same thing. The what? The study of the knowledge of what? Nature. Okay? Okay, so and then Fennel was also the first to describe the spinal cord. Fennel was also the first to dis, what to describe what the spinal cord. Okay, Fennel was also the first to describe what the spinal cord, and of course we why describing the specifically he described what the spinal canal. Okay, he describes specifically what the spinal canal, which is the space in the spine where the spinal cord passes through. Okay, he may think about it sometimes it's obvious. You know, that's how it's funny how we get to know things and things you are just thinking to come about. You get a point, but then of course it's there. Why is it taking people a long time to describe? You get a point, but then it takes a lot to be able to describe things. And what doesn't exist, you think it doesn't exist until somebody describes it and you know it exists. You get a point. Now you may be thinking all the cells in the body have been described. No, new cells are still being described. Yeah, new cells are still being described. So you may, yeah. So never have the mind, but all that needs to be done has been done. And that's what kills innovation and creativity. You understand? So we end up being foot soldiers, just repeating, rehearsing, and repeating what others have done. So never think that all that has been done, or that all that needs to be done has been done. Okay? As the mind thinks. So whatever you can imagine is accomplishable. Okay? So we've looked at Jean Fennel. What did he say he did? So he described what? The spinal canal. Okay, which is the space through which what the spinal cord passes. Okay? And then one great leap forward in the physiological knowledge came from the publications of a man called William Harvey. Actually, sometimes it's called William Harvey is what the father of modern medicine. Okay? William Harvey. Okay, William Harvey. So we had so much bulk of knowledge coming from his publications, of the publication of William Harvey in a book titled Anatomical Dissertation upon the movement of the heart and blood. Okay, so this book was titled what? Anatomical Dissection. Okay. Anatomical dissertation. Anatomical dissertation upon the movement of the heart and blood in animals. Okay, so he published this dissertation, this essay, okay, on what the movement of the heart and blood. Okay, so he was the first to describe systemic circulation and the blood journey through the brain and body. Okay, so he was the first to what? He was the first to describe what? Systemic circulation of and blood journey through the brain and body as propelled by what? The heart. Okay. So as you're following through YouTube, can you ask somebody to be able to give me components of the definition of physiology? Three components. Somebody hasn't put them yet there. And now I'm also okay. Make a resume on the live chat so that I know that you are following of the individuals who've mentioned and what they did. Okay, the individuals who just mentioned. Okay, I've taken them over and over. But now we are at the level of what? William Harvey. Okay, who made a publication in 1628. Okay, Maybe publication of 1528 of the anatomical dissertation, okay, of the movement of what? Of the heart and blood. Okay, I think he was the first to describe what? Systemic circulation of blood through uh, the brain and the body. Okay, and then up until this time, about within the 18th and the early 19th century, most of the concepts that are driven our understanding of the body was based on these four humors until they became a shape. Okay, first, all remember the four humors of Hippocrates, and these were in BC, that is before Christ, isn't it? I mean, they were like 4 or 5 centuries before Christ. Okay, three or 4 centuries before Christ. So, and up to the 18th, 17th, 18th century, there have been the pillars, so to speak, that have been driving our understanding of the functioning of the human body. Not until the works of William Harvey, you understand, another scientist that shifted, they became a paradigm shift. Okay, there was a paradigm shift. Okay, so medical practice was based on the four humors until well into the 1800s. Okay, and in 1838, a shift in thought occurred when the cell theory was described. You remember the cell theory, okay, by Matthias Schleiden? Can we just tell about that? You've done biology, right? Or you didn't do biology? Huh? Or you also copied and pasted? So you have Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann. You've heard of these names before? You've not heard of Schleiden and Schwann. Okay? Of course, you heard of the Schwann cell. Okay, we'll talk about the Schwann. You heard of the Schwann cell? So anyway, we'll look at come to them as we proceed. So what I was mentioning is that until the 1800s or the 18th century and the beginning of the beginning of the 19th century, our understanding of the functioning of the human body was based purely on what? On the four humors. Okay, and so irrespective of the progression, it wasn't drifted. It wasn't drifting much from the four humors. Okay, until the description of the cell theory. Okay. Now, so the next question, which I'll run you, and the first one was the contributions of organic physiology, and so the next one is making a distinction between the cell theory and the organismal theory. Theory and organismal theory. Okay, the cell theory and the organismal theory. I don't know what perspective you students come to school with. Some is asking what book are you using so we download and share. Then why am I here? Then why am I here? Okay? The focus is please, whatever material that needs to be given. There's no follow what I'm teaching you first. That's most important. You understand? I can't leave you in the dark. But for you to be I'm teaching all you are trying to be busy thinking is the book I'm using. Doesn't make sense. Okay? So whatever Webster, I'm the book, okay? Okay, that's good. Kangwa, the physiology is a study, it's a branch of biology related to function, organs, and how the body responds to challenges. That's good, but then that's not the definition I gave you. This is an understanding of even what biology is. But I was asking, what are the key components of the definition I gave? Okay? Okay. Now, okay, that's good, but then you left out the module important. Normal function. That's important. Those other parts are, they exist. You understand? But the normal function, okay, of living organism. It's component parts. Okay, Kanwa, you tried. Okay, that's the definition you've given. It's not wrong at all. It's not wrong at all. It's not wrong at all. But in context, what I was giving, I wanted you to just outline what the key components. Okay, and please try to listen to what I'm teaching and not trying to look at from where I'm teaching from. Do you understand? Yes, from where I'm teaching from. Okay, try to look at what I'm teaching. Even whatever material I give you, if you think even while I'm teaching, it will be changing. Okay, like even what I'm teaching now, before the first class, I didn't have it. I didn't prepare it. I just prepared it now. You get the point? So if you keep sticking to what I'm teaching, you may get off. For each year, I use different material. The year before last, I used a different material. This year, last year, I used a different one, and they are still available. And this year, I'm using a different one. Okay? So that the most important thing is who is teaching and what is the person teaching. I'll definitely give you resources, but as long as I'm doing YouTube, I'm the material. You get the point? Yes. You may think it's hard that this is a learning process, and so you listen, you want to do some few researches. I'm the material. And if I give you the material, I don't need to teach again. Okay? You can read it and give me a phone call or explain. So we mentioned that up to the 18th century, or the 18th and the beginning of the mid-18th century, 1800s, our discussion, irrespective of how they improved, was still centered around the humans, the four humans, isn't it? Irrespective of how progress had been made, but then somewhere it still links to human, to blood. Remember, look at William Harvey, was talking about blood. You understand? Everything was about fluid. You get the point? But now until then, in the 1800s, Theodore Schwann and Matthias Schleiden brought in the cell theory, that the human, every living organism is made of tiny structures called what? Cells. So the deviation was shifted from fluids to cells. You understand? So the deviation was shifted from what? From fluids to cells. So that was a huge thing. Okay? Then now more focus on now, if you now go to, if you have done the history of medicine, you now look at Antoine van Leeuwenhoek. He invented the microscope. And so in trying to look at the microscope, Robert Hooke, look at cells as dead, as like stems, the dead cells or the dead structures. And as they were describing, they began to see things. So with the improvement of technology, understanding of cells, so they now say that life was not in fluids, but it was in cells. You get the point? So life was not in fluids, but it was in cells. Now they started focusing and studying. Now gradually our understanding of physiology began to expand. Now we have cells, and now when these cells aggregate together, they give tissues. Okay, and then when tissues aggregate that are serving the same purpose, organs and organ systems and what? And the human body. You understand? So this is what the study of physiology is, the study of the functioning of a living organism. Whether the living organism is unicellular or multicellular. Okay? So if it's in a multicellular, it's just a conglomeration of the processes that occurs within a cell. We always say that even madness is not madness in the cell. It isn't in the sun. Yeah, but we'll come to it, what we call emergent properties. Okay, so even if it's madness, it's within a cell. And then we say, well, even if the devil works in the cell. In a sense. Yes, even if he wants to change things in the cell. So understanding the cell and the functioning of the cell is fundamental for you to understand the human body. Okay? It may just be complex, but then the principles are the same. How a bacterium survives is the same way a human being survives. They are confronted by the same environment, and they develop adaptive mechanisms to be able to survive. So what is physiology, by the way? So physiology now will be what? In a process, the study of life. So physiology becomes what? The study of what? The study of life. It asks questions about the internal workings of organisms and how they interact with the world around them. You understand? So what? It's a study of life. So we ask questions, how the internal workings of the organism and how it copes with life. So you hear things about evolutionary physiology. How have we evolved to this point where we were? From the tadpole, according to those who talk about evolution, from the tadpole, from the salamander, up to the ape, and to this Homo sapiens. So how have we evolved and coped, isn't it? Yeah, because in the process of evolution, there are also structural changes for adaptation, and the same way as what physiological changes. Okay, yeah. So it is a physiology is a study of what is a study of life. Okay, is there any other thing again that would intrigue you to be more occupied with knowing and to know how life? You understand? Well, we're talking about biological life. You understand? So this is what physiology is about, studying life, the biological life. And so that's what physiology is doing. So everything changed when Schleiden and Schwann came into the picture. So much changed. So you now heard about Robert, Robert Hooke. Now hear about the findings of Antoine Van Leeuwenhoek. Okay. Then from there on, the field of physiology opened up and progress was made. We shifted from fluids to cells. You understand? And then in 1858, Joseph Lister. And for the friend who was asking which textbook, you will not find this in any textbook. Okay. Instead of you busy answering the questions I'm asking, trying to find out the textbook. So Joseph Lister, okay, initially studied coagulation and inflammation. So he studied what coagulation. Studied coagulation and what? And inflammation. Have you heard of blood clotting? That's coagulation, okay? So he initially studied coagulation and inflammation following injury, okay? So he went on to discover and utilize life-saving techniques that could help individuals. Okay, so he studied what? Coagulation and what? And inflammation following injury. Okay, that's what Joseph Lister. Then in 1891, Ivan Pavlov, okay, the Russian scientist. Has anyone heard of Pavlov? You heard of Pavlov, right? Yeah, okay, the condition is that. Okay, the condition is experiment. And I will talk about that problem when it comes to DIT, and then his experiments have widely been in physiology and psychology. Okay, so Ivan Pavlov in 1891 conditioned physiological responses in dogs. Okay, he conditioned what? Physiological responses in dogs. Okay, then in 1910, August August is an African name, so how it is pronounced the way it is. August Croft. So he won a Nobel Prize, I think in 1910, for describing how blood flow in capillaries is regulated. Okay? By some symptoms, it's an interesting concept. Okay? So he won a Nobel Prize in 1910 of how what? Blood flow in capillaries is regulated. And at this point, the third assignment, which is a major one, and from the last time I spoke with the class, he said what you are about 227 registered, 257, 280. Okay, I'm assuming that 300 or even more. So I want um, this number to be divided into groups of 10 each, just for the purpose of this particular assignment. And, I don't know how we'll conduct this, but each group will discuss. So we have Nobel Prize winners in different fields. Have you heard of a Nobel Prize winner? Okay, a Nobel Prize winner. So the assignment is from 1990 to 2020. Group 1 will discuss the contributions, the scientific discoveries in 1990 that led to the award for a Nobel Prize. Please get me where, please. Follow me, please. Let me just say. Now, what are the discoveries that were awarded for a Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1990? Okay, not the discovery. What were the discoveries or contributions that were awarded for a Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, or Physiology or Medicine in 1990? So Group 2, 1991, Group 3, 1992, and up to that, because we have like 30 groups, right? Okay. So the groups of 10. You will write it, you will present it. Okay? Whenever we have a physical contact, it will be presented for just 3 or 4 minutes. Okay? So, and so it will be important for you to know about those Nobel Prize winners. Know them, 1990 to 2020, that means 30. So what it did, yeah, things like that. So okay, so we've talked about. Can somebody just remind us of the names we've mentioned so far and what they were able to do? Somebody remind us. Okay, I'm not getting feedback on the live chat. I'm not getting feedback on the live chat. So I need feedback on the live chat. I mentioned the names we've mentioned and their contributions. Quickly, please, quickly. So while you're mentioning them, we continue. Okay. And please, you start passing from day one. I can tell you that. You understand? For anybody who is not in this class, it will be difficult for that person to catch up. Listen, I don't know any student's name, isn't it? I don't know any person physically, but I'm just saying, it will be difficult for the person to get if you are not part of the class. Okay, so make sure you don't miss class. Sorry, sir, but I did not get the question. Can you kindly repeat them? Okay. I don't know which of the questions you're talking about, but then the last one I mentioned, the first question I mentioned, Mosengu. The first question I mentioned, of course, was to highlight the components of the definition, or in the definition of physiology. I mentioned what are the key components in the definition of physiology I mentioned. Then this question I'm also mentioning now is I'm asking, yes, the names we've mentioned so far and their contributions to physiology. Okay, Godwin says Galenius. Okay, Godwin is Galenius, not Glenus. Okay, I know it may not be easier to. So it's Galenius, right? Huh? You are saying something. Yeah. Okay. And then that's good. Kapata mentioned that Joseph Lee has studied coagulation and inflammation. That's beautiful. Richard says Hippocrates, the father of medicine. Great. And Richard again, or maybe another Richard says William Harvey. uh, from his publication of the anatomical dissertation for the description of systemic circulation. Okay. Um, okay. Then Jen Fennell, the first to describe the spinal canal. Okay. Daliso, we said okay the spinal canal. Okay. That's beautiful. Okay. Dennis Munga. Okay. So introduce the term physiology. That's beautiful. Okay. It means we are following. Okay. I like that. And then we can keep that coming in. And so please, so when you are doing like that, it's easier for someone who is just joining to be able to pick a few things. Okay? And then we can have anatomical dissertations on the movement of the body and what systemic circulation. Okay? So where did we end? So I don't know if most of you got this, but then say what anatomical dissertation upon the movement of the heart and blood in animals. Okay? Where do I write it? Even though they won't see it. Anatomical dissertation of what? Hmm? Movement of what? The heart and blood in what? In animals. Okay, so we have that. Good. And so we also mentioned about beautiful Moses Chinyama mentioned about Matthias. Sorry. So mention about what Moses mentioned about Matthias Schleden and Theodor Schwann described the cell theory. Okay, at that particular point, I talked about an assignment to differentiate between what? The cell theory and what? The organism of theory. That's beautiful. And then Kangwa said Gladius Galenus first used experimentation to derive what? Information about the system of the body. And he said the father or the founder of what? Experimental physiology. That's beautiful. Okay? And then he talked about Robin derived what? The ESR and was trying to situate the concept or the theory of the body fluids or what of the humors. Okay? And mentioned that what? They are just what? Separation, so sequestration of what? Of blood when it's allowed to what? To sediment. Okay? And then I said until the 1800s, our understanding of the functioning of the human body was tied to what? Was tied to the body fluid, or to the human. But then, when Theodor Schwann and what? There was Schleden brought out, described the cell theory, things were shifted towards what? Towards the cells. Okay? That's beautiful. To what Matthias Schleden and what Theodor Schwann. So, that's beautiful. It shows we are following, and please, that's how you learn. Okay? You keep it, you stick. Don't when you're giving your time to learn, don't learn. I'll understand later. The time of later is what you should have been doing something else. Okay? When you have an opportunity to sit to learn, this is what I'm getting from here. Okay? Yes, and this is what I'm getting from here. But that's beautiful. I'm glad with the response so far. Okay, so we mentioned, okay, somebody hasn't mentioned Ivan Pavlov. Okay, we mentioned Ivan Pavlov and what? And August Koch, isn't it? And August mentioned what? Discovering how blood flow is regulated in what? In the capillaries. Okay. Then Andrew Huxley. I think that was in the 1950s. Okay. Andrew Huxley. Andrew Huxley and all these European names. They want to frustrate my English. Alan Hodgkin. Okay, Alan Hodgkin. They discovered the ionic mechanisms by which nerve impulses are transmitted. Okay, these two persons, what they did changed so much of physiology, especially in neural physiology. Okay, in neurophysiology. Okay, they described or discovered the ionic mechanisms by which nerve impulses are transmitted. Andrew Huxley and Alan Hodgkin. Okay, they described what? They described or discovered the ionic mechanisms by which what? Nerve impulses are transmitted. Okay. So the first assignment I gave was what? Gallery. So physiology. The second, and then the third, for Nobel Prize. Okay. Then the fourth is the contributions of William Harvey to physiology. I'll tell you the word limit, okay, or the fixed limit. Then it said Andrew Huxley and Alan Hodgkin, they what? They discover the ionic mechanisms by which nerve impulses are transmitted. Somebody is asking, what time is the lecture ending? You are tired already? I'm sure there's a shima pot beside you, just you can sleep here. Of Andrew Huxley, right? They discovered the ionic mechanism by which what? Nerve impulses are transmitted. And then Andrew Huxley and what is Holly? I don't know if they are brothers or husband and wife. But then Andrew Huxley and Huxley made advances in the study of muscles with the discovery of the sliding filaments in skeletal muscles. Dennis is asked, didn't get the last duo, what they did, what did they do? Okay, Andrew Huxley and Alan Hodgkin, what did they do? They discovered the ionic mechanisms, mechanisms by which what? Nerves transmit impulses. Okay? They discovered what? Ionic mechanisms by which nerves transmit impulses. That was by who? Alan and Andrew Huxley and what? And who? Alan Hodgkin. Okay. Okay. Yeah, for Andrew, it's ionic mechanisms or ionic. This is ionic, not ironic. Okay. Ionic. But then do we have something ironic? Okay, that's probably the future. Irony, right? Okay, so but then the next one was what? Andrew Huxley and what? And Huxley. They made advances in the study of muscles with the discovery of the sliding filaments in skeletal muscles. Okay? They discovered what? The sliding filaments. We'll come to, I think we'll do that Sliding filament. That means they describe the sliding filament theory. The sliding filament. Okay. No, please, soft copies will not be provided. If you have a problem, follow the video again. Okay. Soft copy will not be provided. Okay. So, okay, this is where we wrap up the first segment of this. Okay. And so, in our introduction, we said we'll define physiology, and then the next thing I said, you should be able to outline brief contributions or history of what physiology, right? Okay. And now we want to look at physiology as an integrated science, right? That's great. That's nothing much there. And then we'll look at the systems of the body and their contributions and their offer today. Okay. Now, you remember when we were speaking about Godwin is asking, I should kindly explain on the work of Alan Hodgkin. I mentioned that Alan Hodgkin and Andrew Huxley, uh, they discovered the ironing mechanism by which what nerve impulses are transmitted, and that is what we'll be doing. That's what my colleague will come on to teach, but I'll start it before I'll start it with the main potential, okay? And he will come on to complete that. But for the purpose of the discussion, they discovered what the ironing mechanisms by which impulses are transmitted to nerves, okay? And Andrew Huxley and the colleague, who could be his brother or wife, uh, what did he say they did? They were able to expand and describe the sliding filament theory, or what is called what the sliding filament in skeletal muscles, okay? And it's an interesting theory or filament that brings about, whose activity brings about contraction and relaxation, okay? So we'll talk about that. But remember, this we are just mentioning historical facts, okay? Not the physiology. Okay, we are not trying to describe what they did, so to speak, but what just stating what they did. Okay, as we advance, we'll be seeing the things they did. Okay, okay. Now we now look at. Remember, we mentioned that Theodore Schwann and Matthias Schlegel described or the cell theory, isn't it? Saying that what the cell is the structural and functional unit of a living organism. Okay, that means within a cell, you can be able to understand the organism. Okay, so it's the structural and functional unit of a living organism. Okay, but now, so these cells have all these processes that is able to sustain itself and contribute to the sustenance of a living organism. Okay, for a unicellular organism, that is what it does and keeps that unicellular organism functional and alive. For a multicellular organism, as then the function of a collection of these cells will bring about the sustenance of that organism. Okay, so if we understand the the structure and the function of the cell, we can be able to understand its contribution to the function of the human organism. Okay, then now we have complex behavior that all called emergent properties. Okay, let me define emergent properties. Emergent properties. Okay. And physiology has. Yeah. So emergent now, the many complex systems, including those of human beings, possess what we call emergent properties. Okay, So many complex systems, including those of the human body, possess what we call what? Emergent properties. And so what is an emergent property? These are properties that cannot be predicted to exist based only on knowledge of the system individual components. Okay? Emergent properties. These are properties that cannot be predicted to exist based only on knowledge of the system's individual components. So for those who are looking for books, this book particular one is called an integrated human physiology and integrative approach. I've forgotten the name of it. Ask the students of last year, I gave them this. Okay. Ask them the book I gave them at the start of this program. But one thing I'm not confined to the book. That's one of the things. Okay. You understand? I'm just looking it because I think this one. So Bupe, I'll come back to the assignments, okay? Just allow me to continue, but then at the end, I'll be able to make a resume of the assignments I've given, okay? Emergent properties. These are properties which cannot be predicted to exist based only on knowledge of the system's individual components. I want us to repeat this until you see, and then I will explain. You will now get it quickly, okay? Okay. So look at that definition again and again, look at it again and again until you see, even the same way even the donkey, isn't it? You keep repeating, you tend to know it, isn't it? Okay. What scientific name do you what tell me any scientific name you know? There are no two words about scientific names. Scientific names, how, have you remember, do you know binomial nomenclature? Okay. Almost okay. And what again is the way of human? No, those now that's the description. Then now we have interest and other things and the scientific things of each of them. For example, if you look at for carica papaya, isn't it? Okay, now if I tell you carica papaya, what do you need to know about it? Just about it. It's nothing to be one to understand about, so to speak. You get the point. So sometimes the first step is to memorize it. And when you memorize and repeat over and over, you tend to know it. Okay, that's what I'm driving at. Okay? So beautiful. Okay? These are properties that cannot be predicted based only on the knowledge of the system, individual components. Am I not clear? Yes, for somebody to have pictured that except that it has a software that calculates that transfers. Okay? Okay, so at least people have gotten that. So we are looking at what we are discussing physiology as an integrative science. Okay? And so we are trying to say that the complex system of physiology is based on the what emergent properties, where the properties of the human body cannot be predicted by trying to understand the functions of the component parts. What does that mean? That means it means that if you cannot predict the function or the behavior by looking at the individual parts, the summation of the individual parts. And I'll explain a little bit. Okay? What is the function of a nerve? To transmit impulses, isn't it? Either to transmit impulses, to integrate, and to respond. And what are the parts of the nerve? Okay, you have the axon, you have the soma, you have the axon, you have the dendrite. In these parts, where do you think you can still, by the functions of each of these parts, how can you relate it to behavior like intelligence, madness? You understand? So you can't understand or describe the behavior, you can't describe madness, intelligence, emotions based on the understanding the functions of the component parts of the system. You get the point? So it's the behavior is quite complex for you to understand it by merely piecing small parts and saying this one functions this way. If you add it up, it gives us this behavior. You understand? So it's quite broad and bigger. Okay? So for us to know the functioning of the human body, we now begin to get even the input of things at molecular level and what we call epigenetics. Okay? Okay, somebody, Nick says, I'm not sure how I got it here, but my recommendation brought me here. Okay. Whatever you are, okay, fine. So are we understanding? So let me put it okay. An emergent property is not a property of a single component of the system, and it is greater than the simple sum of the system's individual parts. You get the point? And this is mostly related to things of the nervous system, behavior. Okay? So you can say intelligence, emotions, madness, or whatever is based on your understanding of the functions of the component parts of the nervous system. You get the point? So it becomes more, it's a complex behavior, it's an emergent property. It emerges by an integration of several systems, and other factors beyond maybe just structure. Okay. And so among the most complex emergent properties in humans are emotions, intelligence, and other aspects of brain function. How many of us have heard of the Human Genome Project? What have you heard of, actually? What do you really hear? What do you spend your time doing? You understand? Somebody said the things you do outside the field determine what you do in the field. You understand? Of course, the lifestyle of the player outside the field determines what the player does in the field. So the things you do outside your professional school influences how much you understand about school. What books do you read? I remember I used to run a school. I had a school of nursing and biomedical sciences in my country. And so, students, when they come for admission, I ask them what prompted you to do nursing and they said, I just have the passion for it. And then you have the passion and you are doing arts. You understand? You don't have passion for medicine and the subjects you like and interested in like history and other things alone. You understand? So, in essence, your passion is driven by an objective and conscious step to achieving that. Okay? Yeah. So the Human Project was, of course, this was a project that began in 1990, and so scientists throughout we are taught that They were trying to identify and sequence individual genes, all the genes of the human DNA. So they thought by sequence, by identifying and sequencing all the genes of the human DNA, they can be able to unravel and solve human behavior and disease. But when they did that, they discovered no, they couldn't achieve that. It was now the concept of emergent properties. You understand? That means you couldn't understand the behavior or the functioning of the human body alone, or the nature of the human body by just looking at what the individual gene. Okay, there used to be this molecular biology self dogma where one gene, one protein, of course, which has been modified. Okay, where one gene has several proteins, and then they even also say that when you know the protein that is formed, the function of the protein, you can know what that cell does, which is even still more than that. Okay, so what am I saying in essence? That the complex behaviors cannot be understood simply by looking at the component part, the functions of the component part. So after I identifying and sequencing all the genes, they still couldn't answer the question. They couldn't see treat diseases. They couldn't see understand the origin of certain conditions. You understand? So however, as research advanced, scientists had to revise their original idea that a given segment of a DNA contained one gene that encoded one protein. Okay, because we have the one gene, one protein concept. No, okay, because one gene could bring about several proteins. It became clear that one gene may code for many proteins. Okay, and so the Human Genome Project ended in 2003. But before then, researchers had moved beyond genomics to proteomics. So they led from genomics to what? To proteomics. Okay? So they initially, around the 1990s, they thought by us identifying and sequencing all the genes, we should be able to understand what each gene does. Okay? Because the gene codes for a protein. Okay? So by doing that, we can be able to manipulate things. But then it's further, no, that's not true. Well, one gene can code for what? Several proteins. And even by knowing a protein, the function of the protein, you can quickly see get that. Okay, so as you can say, kindly, I was asking to repeat the name of physiology book to be using. I am not recommending to say that's the physiology book to be using. That's the physiology book you can use. Okay, because I'm not confined. I don't confine myself to a particular textbook. But then this is I'm forgetting the name. But then it's Human Physiology and Integrated Approach, 6th edition. I'm trying to look at the author, but I'm not getting it. Okay. And this is merely for what? For this material I have. The history I was mentioning is not on there. Okay? And the next part is not on there. Please don't forget that the lecturer here, I read several books. You understand? So I may not confine myself to a textbook. Okay. But then I can give you the several textbooks for you to look at. Okay. So now scientists, they have moved from the genomics to what? To proteomics. And what is proteomics? The study of proteins in living organisms. Okay. Proteomics is what? The study of what? Proteins in living organisms. Okay. So scientists have now realized that a protein is made in a particular cell, that a protein is made in a particular cell does not always tell us the significance of that protein to the cell, tissue, or function. Okay? Just because a protein is made in a particular cell cannot always tell us what? The structure and the function of the protein in that cell, that tissue, or what? Or that organism. So it does tell us the level of organization and integration. Okay? So the exciting new areas in biological research are called functional genomics, systems biology, integrative biology. Okay. And so when we talk about integration now, we talk about the coordination and the interrelatedness of cells, tissues, organs and systems. Okay, how they integrate to be able to bring about a particular function. And then it will lead us what we call cell-to-cell communication. Okay, how do cells communicate with one another? Okay, and so just not that somewhere if it's not in the outline, I will eventually cell-to-cell communication. Any questions, please? Any questions so far? Yeah. Environment. Oh yeah. Now, for example, why would two different children together? Now, can we also say that? This one of the things I'm studying my PhD is I'm live. Okay. One thing which is to take note of, for example, can we say that birth by or for normal birth, normal vaginal delivery, and cesarean section have impact on behavior of a child? Okay, possible. Okay, so there are environmental factors that can influence, can alter the the functioning of the DNA. Okay, you understand? Even trauma, stress can do that. Okay, early life stress can do that, and some of these stressors can alter the genes or the can alter the genes, and this alteration can be transmitted to what to the subsequent generation. Okay, not necessarily why it differs, but we can say that okay now let's say he's intelligent. We can say this intelligence. Okay, let's try to study this intelligence. We know the structures of the nervous system. Okay, we say this is the structure that contributes to this intelligence. So we can say that the intelligence is the result of the functions of the individual parts of the nervous system. You understand? It's a property that is complex, that is beyond the summation of the contributions of individual parts. Is it clear? Or did I confuse you the more?
So, what you're trying to do now is that we can't have a clear idea of these measured properties just only by studying the structure of these components.
Not necessarily, not as if we can have a clear idea. We have an idea, but then these emergent properties is not the sum. Like to say, you have pieces, you brought in pieces the nervous system, like the components of the nervous system are nerves, isn't it? And you have the cells. Okay, you have the nervous system, and to say that what is the function of a nerve? Transmission of this, and then to say that this intelligence is because okay, these are the parts of the nervous system, and you take the functions of each, and then you combine, and it gives intelligence. No, you understand? It's a complex behavior that is far beyond the summation of the action of the functions of each part to the brain. Yeah. They are related, most of them, to the brain, on in the most part. Okay. Okay, then lastly, before we call it quit for today, so we were talking about the level of organization, starting from the great work of Sladen and Schwann, you understand, talking about cells, isn't it? And then from cells, the level of complexity, these cells are aggregated to be able to accomplish the task. Okay, so cells are not just there for just being there. They are there to help to accomplish the task. And so the level of complexity or the level of aggregation or the size will be based on the function they are performing. And so these cells aggregate to give us tissues, okay? And these tissues would aggregate to give us what? Organs. And then we have organ systems and what? The organism as a whole. Okay. But now, so these organ systems or these systems, so we have various systems in the human body. Okay. So we have various systems in the what? In the human body. So we'll look at these systems and then we'll look at their functions. Okay. Okay. So we are done with the introduction, and so we are looking at the functional organization, the composition, and internal environment of the human body. Okay. What's the time? 15:38. Okay. Good luck. Just bring that one out. Okay. So the first system is the skin and its appendages. Okay. The skin and its appendages. Do we know the skin? Or do you have a skin? Okay, so please let the guys asking interactive questions be audible enough. I feel left out because I can't hear what they're asking. Okay, they'll ask and then at the same time, are you still be connected to YouTube? You're connected. So once you ask in two, you can type it. You understand? So that they can be able to get you. And then he says, sir, I don't get it how we quickly move from emergent properties to tissue cells and organisms. Okay, what is it you didn't get? Or you want us to pitch a tent at the emergent property? So maybe if you are clear, I'll be able to assist your question. Okay. So we are looking at the functional organization of the human body. Okay. And so here we are dealing at of course, that's where maybe I can try to understand what Dennis is saying. So how do we move from emergent properties to, to this? So here we are talking about what? The functional organization of the human body. Okay. Dennis, I did more than defining emergent properties, and I explained, and that's why I was talking about more or less about the Human Genome Project and the identification and sequencing of genes. And I also spoke about the fact that understanding the proteins formed by each gene was not enough to be able to give us to tell us about the functioning of the human body. Okay, so they left from from genomics to what to proteomics, and proteomics is what the study of the functions of what proteins in an organism, isn't it? And then so by so doing, they have evolved to include other uh, areas. Okay. Okay. Chola says, "Can I keep writing on the board? I will." Okay. So, Dennis, I'm sure you should have also. That's why I remember I said we are just briefly trying to discuss about the emergent properties, and I said uh, about behavior. Okay, about behavior, and it's one of those emergent properties, and most these emergent properties are quite linked to behavior and activities of the nervous system. Okay, and to say that, for example, intelligence or emotions or madness cannot uh, we cannot be able to explain these by just uh, it by just explaining or by summing the functions of the individual components of the nervous system. Okay. Who is this? Ikembe? Please. It's okay. Let me have change the tempo. Now, of course, this is what it will mean. So you've got to, as a student, whatever be it, you talk to the system to allow students to be able to access the internet in the school. Okay, even irrespective, imagine me finishing and you have like 4 to 5, 6 videos in a day to follow. Then I can only be able to complete. Okay. So then is from there we moved on to functional organization of the human body. And by looking at the functional organization, that's where I started from cells to tissues to organs and then to systems. Okay? And then now so I now enter the first system is what? Skin and its appendages. Okay? Skin and its what? And its appendages. Skin and its what? Appendages and its accessories. Okay? And the question I asked, do you have a skin? And so, please, the class will soon end. Don't bother. And if it ends, you can still always download the video later on. Okay? We've got a lot to cover this academic year. It's far better than just sending notes, right? Or we have to just send notes. Mhm. As last year, I told them I either send notes or I lecture. Yeah. So the skin is the outermost covering of the human body, isn't it? Okay. And what can somebody list for us uh, can somebody list for us the appendages? We have hair. Okay. What again? Nails, sebaceous glands, and sweat glands. Okay. Sebaceous glands and sweat glands. Someone is asking what time is the class ending? And then Chibende, I don't want to take note of you. I don't know, you're not the same one. Please, I said it in the morning. I don't want local dialect in the live chat. Please, you can do that in your boarding house. Yeah? But here you speak English. So the class was supposed to end at what time? Actually, it was supposed to be the practical period. It was supposed to end at what time? 17, right? But then, due to people crying, so we end it at 16 or less than 16, okay? So the class will end at 16 or less than that, okay? So next time, please, you try to understand the issue of data, so you try to negotiate on it. There's even just close by the gate there, there's JD's Wi-Fi, which is there, but then how long can you stand for 2 hours or for 40 minutes, okay? So, so we said the skin is what? The outermost covering of the body, right? And what are its appendages? Huh? We have the nails, the hair, the sebaceous gland, and the sweat gland, isn't it? Okay. Please, people keep asking for books. You have Guyton, you have Ganon, and you have what? I've given it, but I wanted the name of the author, or the author's name, okay? But I've given you seen the author's name? Okay. So you have Guyton, please, for those of you asking for textbooks, you have Guyton, you have Gannon, and you have what? Um, this integrative physiology. Okay. So what do you think are the functions of the skin? Okay, hair follicles are part of the hair. Okay, they are just pieces. So what do you think are the functions of the skin? Okay, they protect the underlying um, body structures. Okay, so the first function is now what? The first function of the skin. What? The first function is what? Provides mechanical protection to the underlying tissues. Okay. What again? So the first function, okay, Musengu is asking if I can repeat the what I mentioned about the skin. We said that um, the skin covers what? It's an outer covering of the skin, right? It's the outer covering of the body, isn't it? And its appendages are what? The hair, the nails, the sebaceous glands, and what? The sweat glands. Okay. And what are the functions of the skin? Because first, it provides what? Mechanical protection to the underlying tissues. Okay. So the first function of the skin is what? Provision of mechanical what? Protection. So what is the second function? It acts as what? A physical barrier against entry of microorganisms. Okay. It acts as what? Acts as a physical barrier against entry of microorganisms. And other substances. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay, beautiful. Richard, so the skin encapsulates and protects what? Encloses and protects internal body parts. That's beautiful. Okay. And so we said the first function is provide mechanical protection to the underlying tissues. Okay. The second function is what? Acts as a physical barrier against what? Against the entry of microorganisms. And the third function is what? It prevents loss of water from the body. Okay. Somebody is asking, are we done with cell structure and functions? We have not even started cell structure and functions yet. You understand? Okay, the first thing we looked at was an introduction, isn't it? Now, what are we looking at? We're looking at functional organization of the human body. When we look at the whole broad functions, then we now come to cell physiology. After the broad, we looked at the internal environment, body physical, come to cell physiology. Okay? And I'm sure I'll give the outline later on. Okay? So, okay, so the outline, I'll give it to the class rep. Okay, the outline for the whole course for term one. I'll give it to the class rep. Okay, so don't, so you can use that to study whatever you want to study. Okay, okay, so I'll give the outline. Okay, and then, so what is the first function of the scheme? We have what? The first one is provides what? Mechanical protection to the underlying tissues. The second, it acts as a barrier, isn't it? Acts as a physical barrier against entry of microorganisms. No, so you've got to give full details, complete sentences, okay? You've got to give complete sentences, okay? What is the third function? Prevents loss of water from the body, okay? Uh, Mwape, stop guessing, huh? You see that doing that or not, say I helps regulate temperature, I guess. Okay. So what is the fourth function? Okay, the fourth function is, let's give the function that Mwape is giving. So the fourth function, it plays an important role in regulating what? Body temperature. Okay? So the fourth function is what? It plays an important role in what? Regulation of what? Of body temperature. Okay? Now, but then the first thing is, I was just already thinking, why couldn't you think of those questions? You have a skin, isn't it? What does it do? Okay, say it as you think it, and really give some color to it and give some sense to it. It's your skin. What does my skin do? Okay, yeah. We've said it protects, gives mechanical protection to underlying tissues. It acts as a physical barrier against inflammation of microorganisms. It what prevents water loss, regulates temperature. Don't you feel some sense of? So it also contains it's an important sensory organ, right? Sorry, please. Richard said it makes up the integumentary system. Actually, that is the skin is called the integumentary system. Integument. So what we are actually discussing is what the functions of the integumentary system. Okay? That's good. Iwape, it also provides a sense of what? Touch and feeling. Why? Because it's the sense organ and contains several receptors. So it contains receptors for touch and related sensations. Okay. So we've given five functions of the skin, right? And its appendage. Liang says functions of skin protective and excretive purpose. That's not clear, right? You can say protective excretive purpose. Make it clearer, okay? It's an excretive organ, isn't it? And so through which what we can use water and other solids from the body. Does that give us a little bit idea of the skin? Okay, I'm sure when you come to anatomy or histology, you do it a little bit differently. Okay? Of course, by it helps in the regulation of water, body fluid. Okay? Yeah. Even though we say it prevents loss of water, it also is a route for the loss of water. When you're feeling hot, you sweat immediately. Yeah. Yeah, it separates the internal organs from it separates internal and the external parts of the body. So, okay. So the next system is the skeletal system. Okay. So what is the skeletal system? So it's made up of bones, isn't it? Bones and ligaments and tendons and so the basic framework of the body is provided by a large number of what? Bones, okay, that collectively form the human skeleton. So basically the framework of the body is provided by a large number of bones that what collectively form what? The skeleton. And at joints, these skeletons are joined by what? Fibrous bands called ligaments. Okay? So at joints, these bones are joined together by fibrous bands called what? Ligaments. Okay? Ligaments. And Attached to these bones are muscles, okay, and muscles attached to bones through another fibrous band called what? Tendon, okay. So then, what is the difference between a tendon and a ligament? Okay, so a ligament attaches bone to bone, and a tendon attaches what? Muscle to bone. Okay, so what do you think will be the functions of the skeletal system? It support, okay. It also gives shape to the body because it fits the shape of your skeleton, isn't it? Okay, what again? Together with muscles, they help in movement. So, Musengo is asking if I could take over the skeletal system. I said the skeletal system. I said the basic framework of the body is provided by a large number of bones that collectively form what? The skeletal or the skeleton. Okay? And I said at joints, the bones are united to each other by fibrous bands called what? Ligaments. Okay? And then attached to these bones are what? Um, are muscles. And these muscles are attached to bones through fibrous bands called what? Tendon. And I was asking what the difference between a tendon and a ligament is. And one of the classmates answered that a tendon attaches muscle to bone, and a ligament attaches what? Bone to bone. And then we went forward now to try to list the functions of the skeletal system. And the first function was what? Uh, Support, okay? Uh, Support. Then beauty says it gives what? Shape to the body, okay? And together with the activity of the muscle, the skeletal muscle, it has the what? Movement. And then it's also a site for production of blood cells, okay? The skeletal system is also a site for the production of what? Blood cells. Okay, by yeah, which it also gives balance, that's support. Okay, it gives support. Okay, by outcry of the masses, since I'm concerned, we would have to stop here so that you people don't curse me in your boarding houses today. Huh? But then it will mean we haven't done anything today. Okay, so we'll have the class end here. And so if there are any questions, please you ask or whatever remain silent. So any questions, please? Do we have questions to? Okay, God willing, yes, it's fine. No, there's no need to apologize. Just yeah, you can ask a question. Even if these materials, they are however, they're just materials you get from here and there too. So the most important thing is to follow the class. Will the app be will the app be on iOS? Ah, for now, I'm thinking just to keep it on Google Play Store. Uh, Not yet, okay? Because putting an app on iOS is not an easy thing, isn't it? But that's iOS is Apple, right? Yeah. So putting it there is not easy yet, but it will be on Google Play Store soon. I'm just left with typing a lot of things. I've been typing that for the past 1 month, so I hope to finish typing before we can really develop our round up. So the app will be soon on. I want to believe when the app is out, you won't have to bother so much. But for now, I pick notes here and there. You get a point. I pick notes. So if I give you one textbook, sooner or later you get frustrated because I'll switch to the next one. You get a point. Yeah, that's what happened with last year, and I stopped telling them about textbooks. If you look at the history, I just wrote this one. This was the one I even class. As I start, I just let me try to find material. So when I'm talking about it, it's not as if I'm evading from giving any material. Or what is okay? You don't have to, if I tell you about this book, the next thing I'm switching to this one. Okay, so but I hope that if you're listening to me and writing down something, it's basically like you are downloading the notes I have in front of you. You get the point? That's just as simple as that. Nothing beyond that. So don't panic about anything and just follow the classes keenly. I'll never ask you a question I didn't teach. You understand? No, no. To the best of my knowledge, I don't remember ever asking what I haven't opened my mouth to repeat in class over and over. So once you're in class, and when you get back home, please don't allow fungi to develop or to grow on this note. Read them. As small as they are, they mean a lot. For somebody who didn't attend this class, or well, maybe if you need to follow the video, you might be able to get that. Okay. So just to be clear, we have three assignments, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if there are three, but then we have assignments, right? Three, right? Or can you remind me, please?
Alright, the contributions of guidelines to physiology.
Okay.
That's the first one. The second one, make a distinction between the cell theory and
Organizational theory.
then the third one is the one that talks about
The groups.
yeah, the group and the Nobel Peace Prizes from 1990 to 2020.
But I'm not implying that a student will do all of those. Each group will pick a particular year. For example, if you're in group one, you pick for 1990. It's just nothing much. You know, everything. Who are they? What did they do that they were awarded a Nobel Prize? That's all. Okay? But then you can read beyond that to understand as much as your pattern pushes you. But that's just what I want to hear. And if you can read about other years, fine. Okay? And so that's but then you forgot the fourth one, the contributions of William Harvey. Okay? The contributions of William Harvey to physiology. And just so that I don't forget what I say in class. I don't I don't forget what I say in class. So okay, please okay, those are them and uh, in the Google Classroom there is a place for discussion.
It can only be like a comment section like the one you have. So
But in Google Classroom, I mean just feedback even so the discussion can continue in that Google Classroom for things you didn't understand and then your assessment of the first class. Okay? The one is your assessment of the first class. We had to struggle here and there to be able to have something going. It might not have been the perfect start, but we would, I wouldn't say we would improve because the structures would improve. Okay? You understand? Because the issue, if it was a laptop, I would be close to the laptop and my voice would be audible. But then if I have to move away from here, we will not be able to pick that. Okay? But we are appreciative of what the IT guy did today, and we were able to have something like that. Okay? And please, the number doesn't reflect that of the class, but I want to believe that some of the people their data they ran out of data, and so they disconnected. Okay, so in our next class, we'll be able to talk more. Okay, and if there is any question, please you can send via the Google Classroom and not to my email yet. Okay, don't send me any question on my email. Okay. Okay, so we